Test, test, test. All right, you can stop doing box jumps now. Welcome to the Strong for Life podcast. I'm Coach Josh down here in Hobart, Tasmania. It's 6 minutes past 10. We're running a little late today, but that's all right. If you're catching this live on YouTube, on the Coach Josh Wood YouTube channel, or in the Become Strong for Life Facebook group, welcome. Always good to see you there. And if you're catching this as the recorded podcast on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, awesome, great. Thanks for tuning in. Please take a moment to like, rate, review, share with your grandma, and ask questions because I really appreciate that. Now, we're going to talk about box jumps today and whether or not they are good, and if they are, when they're good, and how they should be used. But first, let me just think if there's any announcements that we have. No big ones. Let's see. It's been a week and a half since my TEDx talk. I'll be sharing that video when it's available. It can take a while for TED head office to get all that stuff done. The vault is open. I've got a couple new programs that I've finished off and are in there for this past week. And I've got another couple more to finish off that will be available in there for the end of the month. So if you are not in the vault, check it out. You can find all the details on strongforlife.online. It is the ultimate fitness resource, an online library of ever-growing programs and nutrition resources. And if there's anything you'd like to see in there, please let me know. I also have the sniffles, so I will do my best not to cough, snort, or sneeze on you while we're listening in. But I cannot make any promises on that front. So I apologize. I'll try, though. Okay. That's all the important stuff. Let's see here. So box jumps. I'm bringing this up because I've had a couple videos sent to me on Instagram this week of like box jump fails. Just horrible stuff. And then I've had people asking, are these good? Is there any reason I should be doing these? So let's dig into what a box jump is first. So a box jump is an exercise in which you jump onto a box. I know, crazy, right? Generally speaking, this is up there with burpees in terms of exercises that you probably don't need to do, but people like to give you because, quote, they are hard to do, and they prescribe them in very poor ways. So like burpees and like a lot of high intensity explosive movements that have been turned into repetition challenges by CrossFit, they come out of that world. So CrossFit has done a lot of great stuff for bringing weight training and especially Olympic weightlifting to the mainstream, which is awesome. So many people would not have started in the gym or learned how to use the barbell or learn gymnastic movements if it wasn't for CrossFit. They've done ultimately more good than anything else. So great. But there are a few things that are very low reward for the amount of risk that you're taking in doing them. And one of those big ones, and we've talked about burpees before, but another big one is box jumps. So a box jump, the idea of a box jump, this is what you're supposed to do. It is an explosive exercise. It is an exercise designed to teach you how to explode through your hips, jumping, fast and powerful, and you're landing on a box because it takes away the impact. Because if you jump as high as you can and land on the ground, there's a fair amount of impact, and you can learn to mitigate that. But if you're jumping onto a raised surface, the amount of distance that you're traveling on the way down is reduced. And this takes away a lot of the impact and allows you just to focus on the explosive jumping action. And this is a great movement for a lot of athletes. Almost every sport that uses your legs can benefit from some sort of explosive lower body training. And if you can take out some of the impact, you get to do more of it better with lower risk of injury. But if you've ever heard me talk about power or speed training, it's something that needs to be done in very low repetition. Generally, you do speed power work in, like 1 to 5 or 6 reps tops. Ultimately, you stop doing reps when your performance decreases. If you want to be explosive or fast, as soon as you stop being explosive or stop being fast, you're not training those attributes anymore. And so you stop and you rest. And so it's usually really low reps, very high intensity, because a jump should be essentially an RPE 10 or a max effort. And you go as hard as you can, and as soon as you can't go at 100%, you rest or you stop for the day. And so, like with sprinting or any speed power movements, Olympic weightlifting, that kind of thing, you do pretty low reps and you have very long rests in relation to the amount of work time that you do. And that's how you get the most out of it. Generally speaking, with a box jump, you're only dropping into, say, like a quarter squat or what we call an athletic stance, not a deep squat. And the goal is to extend or push your hips and legs down as hard as possible so you launch yourself into the air. The box is there to catch you. It's giving you a target, and it's giving you a higher landing point to reduce impact. There is no benefit that I've found, and you're welcome to change my mind on this. I'm always up for that. But I have never seen a benefit to learning how to bring your knees to your face in the air as fast as possible. And most of the time when we see those really super high box jumps and tricks that people do, they're not jumping very high. Excuse me. They're not jumping very high. They are pulling their knees to their head as fast as possible. So they might have an okay jump, and then they have a stack of weights or boxes in front of them that go up to their chin. But they're not jumping that high. They're pulling their legs up that high. And so you see them land and their knees are in line with their face. That doesn't teach you how to jump. That teaches you how to tuck. That teaches you how to pull your knees up fast. And the benefits to that are basically nothing. But it looks cool on Instagram. And hey, you know what? If something looks cool on Instagram, it's probably useless. And that's what I'm talking about a lot lately with ice baths, with burpees, and all of these things and fads and nice videos and people doing cool tricks. You know, there's some really cool stuff out there that people can do. But it doesn't mean you need to do it, and it doesn't mean it's going to be good for you. So box jump should be done for maximum explosiveness, extending the legs, and then landing in a similar stance. So you start in what we call the athletic stance, is like a quarter squat position, or you start standing, drop to quarter squat, explode through the hips, land softly. You shouldn't make a thump when you land, and landing basically in that sort of quarter to half squat position. Because if you're landing deeper than that, the box is probably too high. Because what we're trying to do is accelerate and jump as high as possible. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, so that is what a box jump should be. What should it not be? Cardio. A box jump should never be cardio. The risk of injury is too high, and the benefit is basically nothing. If you want to do cardio, really lower body focused cardio, you could do so many things. You could cycle, you could run, you could do a Stairmaster, you could do leg dominant rowing, you can do skipping, like skipping rope, jump rope. That's a great one. Great options. Very low risk, very high reward, and you can do it for duration. I had a friend of mine send me a message when I shared this box jump video on Instagram, and he's like, yeah, I think it was his sister or sister-in-law, did a box jump, slipped off a wooden box, caught herself, and spiral fractured both of her arms, both her forearms. Did she gain any benefit from that? No, of course not. That's ridiculous. So the risk is not only falling injury, smashing your shins, tripping over the box from fatigue, but also there's a pretty large risk to your calcaneal tendons or your Achilles tendons, the big tendons behind your heel. That constant repetitive smashing down, especially if you're untrained and haven't been doing it for a while, can cause damage there. And you hear about it, literally hear about it quite often, where someone will rupture an Achilles tendon. And if you've ever had that happen or haven't and you want to learn about it, you can YouTube Achilles tendon rupture. And what most people say is if they're in the room with one of these, it sounds like a gunshot. And the person whose Achilles tendon ruptures feels like someone kicked them in the calf, because that giant tendon is under a lot of tension. It will rupture and tear, and then your calf muscle rolls up under your skin, and it feels like you've been kicked. And it makes a very loud noise. And high rep box jumps do have potential for that to be an issue because of the constant forces going through that tendon, especially if you're not well conditioned or not very good at landing. And so there's all these pretty bad risks for something that's designed or best used in low repetition for explosiveness. If you want to have explosive hips, you train within that rep range at that intensity. If you want to be fast, you don't run for an hour. If you want to be fast, you run for 10 seconds or less. If you want to be strong, you lift heavy things. You don't lift light things for an hour. So when we train, your body adapts to the demands you put it under. If you're trying to adapt in a certain way, speed, strength, power, conditioning, endurance, or even just muscle building, you have to train at the appropriate level and duration and intensity. And you have to do exercises that make sense for your body and your outcomes, with outcomes that you want. So my question to anybody programming high rep box jumps is why? What benefit besides fatigue are you getting? I get that it is an event often in CrossFit games or various WODs workouts of the day. If you're training to specifically be good at an event, go for gold. Do it. If you're a parent who does this a couple times a week for fitness, why would you do high rep box jumps, or worse, burpees to box jumps or bench jumps? It's silly. It's just a way for coaches to make you do something hard that has almost no benefit. And I could give my 4-year-old a hat full of random exercises and he can pull them out at random, and you have to do each one that he pulls out, and you'll be just as wrecked and fatigued and tired and have just as little benefit. Doing things that are exhausting for the sake of being exhausting is what people do when they want to punish themselves or punish their clients if you're a coach. If there's no actual benefit to it, why do it? You could be doing something better. This is my same argument against burpees. It is a lazy form of programming to make people sweat and throw up. But the benefits to most people, the average person who is going to these generally fitness classes, the benefit is not there unless you're doing it to make yourself suffer, which has benefit. You have to make yourself suffer sometimes. You have to do hard things. But if you're going to do something difficult, shouldn't it actually have another outcome as well? Shouldn't it give you some sort of physical benefit? That's up to you to decide. As a coach, like I said, I made a promise that I'll never program burpees because there's always a better exercise. And I've never had to break that promise. Do I give box jumps? Yes. I give box jumps to people who have specific athletic goals and want to develop some speed and power and explosive hip action. But you know what can do that with lower risk, especially for clients who are not as well conditioned or don't have access to boxes or whatever, other forms of jumping. If you want to make someone tired doing something similar, do squat jumps, do alternating lunge jumps, do broad jumps, which is jumping for distance. All of those have a lower potential for risk or lower potential for injury than box jumps. They take less equipment. You're less likely to get hurt. You're less likely to hurt your clients. And you're developing a lot of the same attributes. And you can do them in low reps and do them explosively and have great benefits. And you can do them even at higher rep ranges, which might be relevant to some sports, and still have a lower risk of injury. So if you are doing lots of box jumps to fatigue and you're writing your own program, rethink that and then join in my Strong for Life members vault, where all the programming is done for you at an affordable rate, so you always have something useful to do. If you're a coach and you're giving people high rep box jumps because that's what you learned in CrossFit camp, or because you just like to make people tired, rethink that. If you've got a good reason to do it, something that I'm not addressing here because I forget stuff all the time, let me know. I'm happy to hear it. But from what I've seen in 12 years in this industry, most people don't do it right. Most coaches don't program them right. So rethink it. Box jumps. Do you need to do them? No. Are they beneficial? Sometimes. Should they be done high rep? Almost never. Should they be given to newbies? No. No. There's a big risk there. And any plyometric or jumping type movement has an inherent risk to connective tissue damage if you're not conditioned for it. So if you haven't been training for a bit or doing some strength training or athletic training for a decent amount of time, I'm not going to give you jumps, especially jumps onto something that you could slip off of, especially if I'm not there to help you. So these are all considerations that you need to take into consideration. So if you got any questions about that, please let me know. That's, great. We're on 15 minutes. That's a perfect length for this show. As always, the goal of this is to keep everything under 20 minutes and keep it short, digestible, topical, focusing on busy parents and professionals who do not have the time for a 3-hour lecture on a specific topic. Just take the goods, go with it. And if you have questions, thoughts, concerns, refutations, hit me up. I'm always happy to have that conversation. And that's me for the week. Have a good one, and we'll see you next week.